Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 9, and we're going to count this as our episode 1 of the Supercross recap series that AJ and I are going to be doing for you guys. So A1 was just this past weekend, Saturday night, and every week from here on out, AJ and I are going to do the recap of the race, get AJ's perspective on it, my perspective as a fan watching it, and kind of pseudo involved with AJ's program a little bit, and kind of meld those two worlds, fan, the racer, and bring you guys some content that I think will be pretty interesting. So without further ado, we'll get right into it. AJ, man, A1 did not disappoint.
No, it sure didn't. And the weather played a huge factor, obviously, even throughout the day. So much to talk about. I'm actually excited.
I mean, this was probably my favorite race to watch in a long time. I mean, it was it was nonstop talking points from. I mean, the very beginning. We'll kind of get to everything, but that gate malfunction right off the rip, new network, all the anticipation, those guys on the line, their heart rates had to be absolutely jacked, and then all you hear is just rev limiters for like way too long. I was like, what? And like the way the camera was panned on everybody, it's like you knew everybody was saying like, what the hell?
Oh yeah, they were like, oh no. I wish at that point though they were quick on their feet, and I think somebody in that race had a heart rate strap on and were connected to the thing. It would have been really interesting just to flash to a heart rate, because I guarantee you they were like 145 or higher, just sitting there, like with the race about to start.
Had to have been.
That's a crappy feeling.
Do you know what happened? Or actually, let me back up. Did you even know where you were? Did you even know that happened?
No, I didn't. I didn't know until I watched on TV. I'm like, what the heck? Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah, that was...
All I know is as it was happening, I'm like, this is a long gate drop. And then you could see everyone start to look around. I'm like, yep, figures.
Yeah, figures. So did they ever determine what happened? Or was it just some pneumatic issue?
I mean, the guy fell asleep that was at the controls.
Yeah, seriously.
No, I don't know. I'm not sure what could have happened that they fixed that quick. Because they immediately basically did a practice gate drop and then went right back into it. It only took about 35 seconds, maybe a minute at most. It wasn't that long of a delay, so I don't know what could have been wrong.
Crazy start to a crazy race. And if we can back up to the almost like the widest field of view and start with the new network, NBC now, a lot of mixed feelings about it. Everybody hates change, so you always have those people who are like, bring back Fox Sports 1. You know, everybody makes a switch, and some people didn't have Fox Sports 1, some people didn't have Fox Sports 2, and now everybody has to worry about getting NBC Sports or the NBC Gold package. It's a lot of drama for a lot of people. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't know what channels come normally. All I know is I had both of them on my TV.
Me too.
I don't know what I probably pay way more than I should for something that I don't know I have. But for me, it was a non-issue. I just typed in NBC and it popped up and I recorded it. The NBC Gold is just a bonus to that. I think maybe they could explain a little bit better that you don't need to buy that if you have the channel. That's not the only way to watch it. That's just another way to watch it. So you and I just bought it this morning just so like we can kind of go back and look through and have easier access to watching it back, right?
Yeah, I mean it is a useful tool if you're doing, especially what we're doing, to be able to go back and watch the full thing without having to comb through a DVR with a TV remote. Mm-hmm. So that is a benefit, but it is a steep price if you're going to go pay for it on your own. It's $75 for the gold thing, but I think you're right. I mean, you don't have to do that. You can watch it on NBC Sports, and some of the races are going to air on NBC, just like the old ones used to air on Fox. So there are TV options. People don't have to go too out of their way to watch it, but it's a little inconvenient. And I'm curious. Not that it really affects you or me, but I'm curious how the ratings are going to be. I wonder how they like NBC versus Fox stack up.
I think they're pretty comparable from what I've read. I think the two networks are pretty comparable. I could be totally wrong on that. But
Okay.
what was I going to say? I think if anything, it would be better too for people overseas that are trying to watch it. I don't know if there's restrictions on them buying the app, but it seems like it'd be easier. Just log in, buy your NBC Gold, and that's how you watch if you're, you know, in Europe or Australia or something, you want to watch it. Where before, who
Right.
knows what their situation was as far as trying to find the channel and all that.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So I think it's good. I mean, watching it back, I was pretty pleased with all of it. I think the new look of the way they kind of have the names on the side and instead of rather than scrolling across the top, just little changes that the normal person may not even notice, but anyone that's been watching it for any amount of years would notice these changes. Even like the little previews, like when it starts and it does like the dramatic whatever at the beginning. I feel like it's a little bit more professional with NBC as opposed to Fox Sports.
Yeah, look, it's fresh. It's a fresh look. Yeah,
I
I
like
don't
the
know if
new
I prefer
logo.
one or the other. Yeah, I do too. Yep.
The one big thing I will say, and I don't know if you and I talked about this yet with each other. I know I spoke with Dave Drakes last night on Instagram Live about it. I don't like Carmichael in the booth.
I didn't think that I wouldn't like him, but I ended up not liking him. I was a big fan of Emig. I thought he did a really good job translating the sport to a viewership that might not have had a grasp on it. And a lot of people know his story about his speech issues that he had to overcome to be in that broadcaster role, and that part's cool. But you would never know it watching it if you didn't know
No,
that background.
a lot of people hate on Emig, and I think he did great. I
I
don't see,
think he was excellent. I really do.
yeah,
And I actually think that Carmichael is nowhere near as well spoken as him. He doesn't flow. Maybe it just takes a little bit of practice because he was doing the on track stuff in previous season and didn't really have to articulate himself in the same way. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, obviously he knows his shit, so we won't take that away from him. But just listening to it, I didn't find that it was as satisfying as the Emic.
no,
But I
and
did
it's
watch
like
the.
he doesn't make it exciting. Like there was a couple passes for the lead, or like when Malcolm Stewart fell, and Carmichael just kind of like, oh, Malcolm fell, and it just takes away from the excitement of you rely on Ralph to be Ralph and to yell when something happens, which is great. But Emig would show a lot of the emotion when something would happen. Emig would get into it too, and as a viewer, I
Yeah,
think it makes it more exciting. Where Carmichael, I don't know if he's just jaded to it all now. I mean, Emig's been around it all the same too, but Carmichael doesn't really show that emotion. And then when he tries to explain what's happening, obviously he has the information, but I don't think he'd be a very good teacher either. Like you could tell he just can't articulate what he's thinking.
yeah, yep. I think it's like so ingrained in him that it's not translated well.
And
I think that is a
granted,
problem.
like you said, I mean, Emig had years and years of experience in the booth. I'm sure if we rewound to his first time up in the booth, he probably didn't do it perfect either. But I'm curious
Yep.
to see what happens, just because I really like Daniel Blair in the position. I would like to see them switch. I think Carmichael's does a good enough job trackside, but Daniel Blair speaks super well. He's really good at making sense of what's going on the track, and if something like he's just good at
I agree.
explaining what happens. I like listening to him.
Yeah, and I did catch your guys' Instagram live, and I was teasing you a little bit on there, and I know you saw that. But when you were talking about Blair, and a thing that I noticed when he was doing his broadcast was, if I didn't know his background, I would think that he was actually a broadcaster who knew something about Supercross.
Right.
So I think he came across very, very well. Yeah, we'll see. Let's see how RC does. I think it's
Maybe
too
they just
early
got
to
to
tell.
get me in there. They just got to get me up there.
You would be good at it, no lie. You would. But
The one thing I have to work on is mouth movement. Like I feel like when I talk, my mouth doesn't move, and like I get really self-conscious about it.
you're always smiling.
But I could definitely articulate what's going on. But the thing is too, you don't want to confuse it too much. You want to dumb it down enough so that the average viewer can can stick with you.
Right.
But you also do want to explain a little bit what's happening. If somebody crashes, you can give them some insight as to how they crashed. Like if somebody makes a aggressive block pass, like we'll get into talking about, I'm sure with Hampshire and AC, like they'll explain a little bit of, whether it was called for or not. I don't know, all that type of stuff. I'd like to see a little bit more of that personally.
Yeah, I agree.
But
And I cannot leave this topic without expressing my sadness, sorrow, and disappointment that we no longer are blessed by Jenny Taft on screen.
yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that.
What's
Jenny
what's the new
as
girl's
a person, name? But I also think Jenny did a great job with it as well. She had done it for so long that she knew all of the riders. She knew exactly what was going on. The new girl, Will, I think her name's Will, is it?
Willie, yeah, Will, yeah, okay.
Well, I don't know. She definitely doesn't have the knowledge. I don't think that Jenny Taft did, but that'll accumulate. She'll get used to it. I think for what her job is, I guess she does fine. I don't know. We'll see. Jury's still out on her as well.
All right. Okay. So moving on.
Well, next thing, because this kind of has to do with the network and maybe Feld as well. Did you hear all the drama about Dean Wilson having to cover up his Ignite logo?
Yep, and there was just an update on that today. So why don't you explain to everybody what that happened, and we can go into what the update is now.
Yeah, so I didn't even know that, and Dean came up to me when time qualifying was going on. He walked over and said, "What's up?" And first thing I said was I thought that the Ignite thing was pretty awesome. I congratulated him on just putting his whole program together. He goes, "Yeah, you didn't hear it." He goes, "I have to cover it." And I'm like, no, "Of course." I'm like,
so
just of course.
Well, let's back up for people who don't know. Ignite is Dan Bilzerian's cannabis company. So there's a little bit of controversy with regard to that whole industry in general. I mean, you and I are on the same page. We think it's awesome that Dean picked up that sponsor and that Dan Bilzerian is now a part of Supercross, which is super cool. So there was there's I guess a big backstory behind NBC's.
Right. At first I thought it was Feld putting the kibosh on it, but then what I heard, and I don't know what's the truth and what's not, is that the network couldn't allow it because marijuana just simply isn't federally legalized. It's just legalized in certain states and it's not legal in others. So to have a nationwide network, I guess you can't have it. Is that true?
That's what I've come to understand. That's their philosophy on it. But
did you hear what they did?
Well, they changed the name of the company.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They changed the name.
Like, that's so cool. It's just
I know. You just got to stick it to them. But it's just this is the type of freaking climate that we're in these days. Everybody has to be so freaking sensitive about this kind of thing. It's so ridiculous. I mean, my personal stance on marijuana notwithstanding here, it's like, come on. Supercross fans, the racers, do they really give a shit? Absolutely not. And like for NBC to do that, give me a break. That's my thought.
Right. And to explain what they did is it was called Ignite Cannabis was the name of it. Now it's just simply Ignite, as far as I know.
And they went through like a little bit of a rebranding.
It's more of a lifestyle
to make
brand.
It like a personal lifestyle brand. Family friendly now, folks. Hooray. NBC could show the logo.
Which good. I'm glad. Right. Hopefully they can, and hopefully that's all worked out, because I think. And even Dan Bilzerian just tweeting about it and just having the word motocross in his tweet, I think that alone is huge.
Huge.
Whether it's in a negative way or positive, whatever the heck, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's the kind of stuff we need.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we'll get into Dean Wilson because I mean he was an absolute phenom this weekend. But I don't want to put the cart before the horse. So where do you want to start?
Well, do you want to talk press day and my
I
whole
do.
view on press days?
Well, not just your view. This is something that, as a fan, I can't stand, and as your friend, I can't stand. Um, so yeah, let's get into that. And I'll just preface by saying that I think, as a fan, being involved with your program taken out of the equation, as a fan, I find it ludicrous that the top name guys get an entire day on the track to feel it out, get used to it, configure their bikes to it, et cetera, et cetera. They get that humongous advantage over privateers and the guys lower on the totem pole. I can't think of another sport where there is such a disparity between the top name guys and the lessers. It drives me absolutely insane because that time on the track is so invaluable, especially to guys that don't have the resources that the big teams do to make bike adjustments and don't have the vast amount of people behind them to use all that information to be on the track for that period of time. Like, imagine if you were on the track prior to showing up practice on Saturday.
If I wasn't in the sport and knew how it all works, I wouldn't even believe that this were the case because it's just that unfair. So to explain to you guys, on the Friday before an event, they have what's called press day, and they usually have two sessions. They'll have a 4:30 a.m. session. They'll have a noon session. They invite X amount of riders. Typically, it's mostly factory guys, especially at A1. It's all of the factory guys, and maybe a local privateer here and there if they're feeling nice, or they have to fill a spot. In press day, they basically, I think they just invite local news stations come to do some interviews. There doesn't even have to be riding. If they just simply set up the finish line jump and they had a couple riders jump the finish line jump, that would be more than enough photos that they would need for press, a short little slow motion video clip. That's all they would need. But at A1 and at a lot of the tracks, what they're doing now is they let you ride the entire track without the whoop section included. So at A1, you had the whole track without the long set of whoops and without that short little set before the triple. And they give them 4 or 5 sessions, 10 minutes a pop. That's 40. Let's just say, call it 40 minutes of riding time. That's more time than you have
get
3/4 of the day on race day. Yeah.
Yeah. It drives me insane. And you hit the nail on the head. If somebody were just outside looking in, not understanding how that worked, you would think it would not be possible.
It's cheating. I mean, it's half of the battle. And the reason I'm so good at Supercross and why I like Supercross is because it's a different track every weekend, and it takes a special kind of skill to learn that new track in the little bit of time you're given. But when you give these guys 40 minutes, everyone's going to jump everything, of course, because they have 40 minutes to learn it. But when you only have an 8-minute free practice, if you don't jump something in 6 laps, you're not going to jump it.
Yeah, it's crazy. All you have to do is look at A qualifying and B qualifying times. There's nobody in A qualifying that didn't ride press day, right? I mean,
Right.
I would think that everybody in the A qualifier rode press day, and their lap times, they're indicative of that. Then you go to the B qualifying, and their lap times are indicative of that. It's to have that much time on a track, before everybody else is just crazy.
And in B group, you had a couple guys. I know the Enticknap brothers, Ben LeMay, a couple of them rode press on Friday, and which I wasn't aware of. So you go out in B group. And what they do is this weekend at least, they did a gate drop to start out the practice. I got the whole shot on the gate drop, which for me is kind of what you want. You want to get out front and practice. It sets the tone. You maybe ride a pace that you're a little bit uncomfortable with right off the bat, but it just gets you in that race mode. And these guys fly by me doing all the jumps first lap, and I'm kind of, it lowers my confidence because I'm like, what? How are they jumping everything perfect right off the bat? And for me, it's first race. I haven't been on Supercross track in a while. I'm afraid to do the triple. I'm afraid to do the 2 doubles across the start straight. It takes me 6 laps to do it, which gives me 1 lap after that left in that practice to be able to kind of hit it at speed, if that, And these guys jump it on lap 1. it's insane. I mean, it absolutely should not be allowed. But again, just like the fact that the pay we get from the AMA, and we've talked about that, sucks so bad, but the factory guys have it good, so why are they going to complain? So it'll never change
Well,
because
there seems to be a couple simple solutions here, in my opinion, as a fan. And I would suggest two things. One, okay, do the press day, but like you said, have it on a very small section of the track as to not gain a competitive advantage. Get your
Mhm.
pictures, get your photo op, get what the press wants out of it. Get the exposure, but don't give a humongous advantage to let the riders ride the whole track. That's option A. Option B is let everybody ride the track on press day, have the big spectacle be about all the factory teams and have all the press there and do the whole big shebang, but then keep the track open and let everybody else ride it. That doesn't seem to be that difficult, and there has to be some reason why they don't do that. But why not just let everybody ride the track?
The more we talk about this, the more pissed off I'm getting. Because so before the season started, that was kind of my idea, is with the weather being the way it's been on the East Coast, and I knew how things were going to play out. I was worried about seat time during the week once the season started. So I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm going to get in touch with Dave Prater at Feld, try to get in touch with whoever is running the press days, and just see if I can get into all of them. I'll kind of play the angle of, I'll do whatever you guys need. I'll do whatever TV interviews that the factory guys I'm sure don't want to deal with. I'll do all the dirty work, whatever. I want some seat time. And the person in charge responded a couple times. I thought it was gonna go well. They responded based off of the CC from Dave Prater, who's the head guy in charge. And as soon as it was brought off of the CC, I got ghosted. So, and I've sent probably 4 or 5 follow-up emails to the point where I know I'm driving this person insane. But the fact that I'm basically begging at this point to ride press day, and I can't get in, it makes me want to cause even more of a stink, because it's just so crazy unfair. I mean, these guys are testing their bikes. They're not doing
That's what it
press.
is.
They're going out and they're testing their bikes. They come in, they're making suspension changes, shock changes, changing mapping, changing gearing.
Right. That's the thing that really irks me. And I can't even imagine as a rider what you would feel about that, because it's one thing to do press day, to have the press conference. That's all well and fine. Like every other major sport, have a press conference. Everyone dresses up nice. They show up. They sit at a panel. They do press. Okay, great.
Of course.
They're doing a test day, is what it is, with some cameras there.
Yeah, it shouldn't even be called press day at this point anymore.
No.
And in the past, I don't think they would allow them to ride that much of the track, because I remember doing press days years ago, 2011, 2012, and we rode one little section. And at that point, even then I thought it was an advantage, because if that one section happened to be a rhythm, well, then you learned one of the rhythms. So it's one less thing to stress about.
Right.
But when you ride the whole dang track, I mean, that's just bizarre.
Now, are your title sponsors all local to each round this year? Or not necessarily?
Pretty much all of them, yeah. Pretty much all of them.
So you have a unique position where you have a local business that could really benefit from some press at each of the rounds.
That's what I'm trying to leverage with Feld right now. I'm not just some guy representing Virginia coming into each of these rounds. I have local companies. So, and if anything, it's a cool story for the local press. I mean, I could help them. It's not just them doing me a favor. And it's driving me nuts. But yeah, hopefully we can make that happen, because it's pretty bizarre. Or we need to figure out who the privateers can reach out to start causing more of a stink. Because the fact that all 22 riders or whatever it was in A group were all out there riding Friday, obviously isn't fair. And that's a lot of it. I mean, for anyone listening to this going, oh, well, you're all riding the same track, you all have to learn it anyway. obviously anyone that would think that has no idea what's going on in this sport.
Right.
Because an extra 40 minutes on a track, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Eli Tomac, Jeffrey Hurlings, or you're me. An extra 40 minutes on any track, you're going to get faster. You're going to dial things in. There's just no way around that. Every time I hit the track on Saturday, I got faster and faster. Even as it started to rain, I would argue that I got faster on the track. I'd have to go look at lap times, but I felt like I was going faster just because I was getting more comfortable. I was getting used to the flow of the track. I was attacking the rhythm sections with a little bit more aggression than I would. Because when you first ride a track, let's say you have the 8-minute free practice, that's 7 or 8 laps at most. It's a minute lap time, and you're riding hard the whole time. You're getting only 8 laps. But let's just figure in you're doing a slow lap to get a little bit of a breather. You're doing another slow lap. You probably only have 6 or 7. In that 6 or 7 laps, you're lucky if you learn all the obstacles. That's kind of the goal. But when you learn the obstacles, you're not hitting them at speed. You're timing them. So if there's the triple after the whoops, there's the finish line, there's the rhythm sections. You're hitting them just fast enough to clear them. But that's not how a pro races a track. A pro races a track by hitting everything as fast as they possibly can and soaking it up or scrubbing it accordingly and trying to push through it. And it takes a certain amount of time of riding the track and being confident with it to do that.
100%.
Enough of that because I'm getting ticked off just thinking about it.
Moving on. All right, so 250s. What do you think?
Well, let's back up again one more time because I'm looking at my notes and I have track layout written down. So let's.
All right, I was gonna get into that in a little bit, but yeah, let's go to track layout. Sure.
Okay. Because normally this would be another thing that myself and everyone else would complain about, but I will say that especially for the first round, I think this was a really good track design, and I think it was built fairly well. It had a couple sections that I think certain riders were iffy on, just based on the way they kind of built the jumps. The dirt was really, really good, and I don't know if that
I know you mentioned the dirt.
Yeah. And I think it probably had something to do with it being overcast and a bit cooler out, so it kept its moisture. For Southern California track, I mean, that dirt was unreal. It was really, really good. The track layout flowed pretty nice. I really liked those doubles going across the start. They were safe enough to where if you had to roll it, they had basically a lane to the left where you could even just hop off the track if you felt like you might get landed on, which I think was smart. The first turn was very fair. Even going into the second turn, it was pretty fair and safe, where a lot of times they're forced to, or they just create a first turn that is either super unfair, meaning if you're on the inside, you're basically going to get the start. If you're on the outside, you're effed. And then some of them are a little hairy as far as like what the first section leads you into. Like if you take the first turn, you're hitting a big triple, because what happens is the first 3 guys will jump it. Whoever has to double it first, then everyone's having to slam on the brakes and double it. One person jumps it. I don't have to explain why that's dangerous, but I think they did a great job with the track. And
we'll get into that. Everyone
agreed.
For next week, yeah, that's almost exactly the scenario. As your first turn, you're in a huge rhythm section.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's going to be some tracks that suck, some that are great, just like usual. But A1, I think everyone was pleased on the track.
I liked it as a fan, for sure. And it's funny you mentioned the first turn, because the first turn ended up being a point of a lot of drama in the race. But as long as you think it was fair.
Okay, but let me get into that now, because I have that jotted down in my notes too. So the first turn was sketchy for one reason, because with it raining a little bit throughout the day, the first turn wasn't seeing any tires until we rode the start. So the rest of the track stayed pretty darn good the whole day until the main events where it all went to crap. Because even with it raining out, you have 20 bikes on the track at a time, constantly tearing it up, eating it, like chewing it in, and it stays good. But when that first turn is just sitting there polished and it's just dumping down on it, people didn't account for that, which It shows you
I
how
was
like,
really surprised that it happened multiple times. That I was like, is nobody learning their lesson? I mean, it's easy for me to sit here and say that as a
well, that's
fan.
motocrossers for you. I mean, you have such tunnel vision, you just can't think about what's happening. So I could
Right.
understand the first heat race of the 250s, the first one to touch the track. I get it. I mean, they didn't see it happen before. If it were me, I would have known. I would have lined up on the far inside and I would have slammed on the brakes early. But most guys don't think like I do, I guess. Um, Half of the field crashed. Okay, so I'm heat two. Nobody's touched that since heat one, other than the first turn where everyone fell. What am I going to do? Well, I'm probably going to go in there sort of slow. No,
Yeah.
Jimmy Dakotas, perfect start, comes in way too fast and just crashes all on his own. It's like, dude, Jimmy,
Yeah.
just, I know you want the whole shot, but you should have known better, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Even me in the LCQ, I had, and in the heat race for that matter, I got a third place start in the heat, but in the LCQ, I got the whole shot all by myself. And I knew halfway going down the start straight, I had such like a commanding lead in front of everybody. I just started slowing down. And I was surprised that nobody blew by me and crashed, but they kind of followed my lead, which was smart of everyone.
Right.
And I think we all stayed up. So, yeah, I mean, but that's the sport for you. And I think the people that are successful kind of ride that way because you have to have that tunnel vision of just go, go, go. I'm not worried about anyone else. I'm not overthinking things. I think that pays off more so than my style of think, which has its advantages at times, but I'd say it has more disadvantages than it does
Yeah.
advantages.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Um,
So where does your notes take us next?
well, no, I'm glad I had this written down because well, no, let's talk 250. So what do you have in mind 250 wise?
Well, I'm curious about Mitchell Harrison. What ended up happening to his bike or him? Like what was going on? Because he was poised to do well, I thought, and then he had a couple issues. One, they said it was a clutch issue. Then they swapped the motor, and would he blow it up? Like, do you know what his deal
Yeah.
was?
So he's riding for Rockwell Racing, which is the team I was associated with last year on the West Coast. With that being said, to my knowledge, Rockwell isn't going out and building that bike. Mitchell's in charge of hiring whoever he wants to hire as his motor builder. So I don't know who that is. My only guess here is that Mitchell coming off of, he's only ridden for satellite, basically factory teams his whole career, right? I think he was Star Yamaha, he was Rockstar Husky.
Yep.
He's ridden for these really good teams and had the best of the best equipment. Going into basically a privateer situation, my guess is he just had this bike built to the moon and back, like the fastest, most ticking time bomb of a bike you could build. And I mean, it's kind of his fault. I don't know. I've never had a bike blow up. I've never had anything happen to my 250s because when I'm a
Knock
privateer,
on
like,
wood, would you?
yeah,
Jeez, way to
gee,
jinx
okay,
yourself,
knock on wood.
dummy.
But it's because yeah, sure. In the 250s, I've had motor work done, but it's very conservative because I want my bike to run. I don't know. It's just a
Yeah.
lot, and it's no surprise you see that happen a lot. But to have it happen back to back like it did with him, and it looked
I
like two
know.
different issues, frustrating.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Not a good way to start it out. But I mean, Cianciarillo, we all called it. I mean, he was your favorite. I think he was everybody's favorite. And by,
that was
all the
his
heat.
demise.
Yeah. And so, yeah, a lot of people are talking about the RJ Hampshire pass and the retaliation. I thought it was awesome. And I think that, look, I think Adam knows he's the fastest out there right
Yep.
now. I think he knows he's the guy to beat. And RJ Hampshire wasn't having it. And I commend him for that. I mean, he wasn't letting him walk all over him. So was it retaliation and a dirty pass? No, I don't think so. I think he did exactly what he needed to do to make a statement and say, this isn't just yours to take. We're going to make you work for it.
I totally agree. And I think that's all it was. If it were in a different scenario or a slightly different situation, I would say it was slightly uncalled for, because it was, it's early in the season. It was pretty early in the race. But for the purpose that I think, and you just said you think he did it, which was to send that message of, we're not just going to let you have this. I think it was very smart of him to do. And I like RJ a lot. He's a super nice kid. He's not a dirty rider. I think that was very smart for him to have done that, because
Yeah, I mean, and I think just to set the record straight, I think AC's pass was a little cleaner while aggressive. Like RJ's pass was there to send a message. I don't think there's any doubt in that. But I don't think it was dirty either. It wasn't as clean and it wasn't as nice, but it wasn't dirty.
Yeah, but AC's wasn't all that nice either, because AC
it wasn't nice.
He could have also cut down 3 ruts earlier than he did. He just kept riding across the ruts. So
right.
But that's what you do. I mean, I do it all the time. If you're going to pass somebody, and it happened to me as well. Like when I got passed in the turn before the whoops, I think Chisholm passed me there. He rode across the 4 ruts just to make sure that I wasn't going to go back around him.
Right.
That's just kind of how it works. I don't think it happened and RJ was seeing red. Actually, what it reminds me of exactly is the Roxon Cooper Webb incident last year, where Cooper Webb block passed Roxon in a right-hand turn before a long set of whoops at San Diego, I think. Roxon was seeing red and just wanted to go for his throat at all costs. I think that was a totally different situation. I think this was almost a little bit more premeditated, and the situation was perfect for it, for RJ to just send that message. And he didn't, it wasn't like he slammed him. He just totally ran him out of track. Like, to the point where RJ was riding the hay bale with his front tire. So AC
and
really
good. I mean, maybe that's just a reality check that Adam needs to be able to keep himself composed for the rest of the season. Maybe without that, he would have gotten a little too big in the head and made a worse mistake. You never know how these things shake out. Maybe it could have grounded him a little bit and put him back on planet Earth, and maybe it would be for the better.
Yeah, I think he's got to be careful with that, because if he loses this championship, it's kind of like before the season started, I would have said Tomac is the only way he's losing this championship is like if he messes up himself. Because there's really fast guys in that 250 class. Ferrandis is really quick. Colt Nichols obviously is riding awesome, but Sansorilla is going to be the top guy if he doesn't blow it. I think sometimes he just rushes and wants to get to the front so bad that he overrides and he just has that tunnel vision, maybe a little too much.
Yeah,
but he salvaged it.
Very
what did he get? 5th still?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's still fine. Yeah, like first turn, he blows right past the first turn, and then right away, he goes into panic mode.
Yep.
But
yep.
What else did we have? 250s. Colt Nichols. I mean,
Colt Nichols. I know, what a ride. Yeah, that was awesome to watch. You always like to watch a guy lead the whole race and win. That's just like a satisfying thing to see.
Especially somebody that hasn't won before. And I like Colt a lot. I love his style on a dirt bike. He's so crazy talented. Him and I were battling as privateers for 2 or 3 years. So it's cool to see him be at the top now. And he looks so composed. That's the crazy thing, is like, he didn't look like he was riding tight. I was watching the clock and I was nervous for the guy, because it just seems like the race has got to feel forever when you're in that position. Just kind of like how Dino was in that position. It's got to feel like an eternity while you're out front. But he had a couple good lines. Like he was jumping through that one short set of whoops. He was going quad in the rhythm section, I think. Which a lot of guys weren't able to do in the mud. He was hitting the double across the start straight consistently, which a lot of guys weren't able to do in the mud. He just looked darn good. So that was cool
Yeah,
to see.
yeah. We'll see how it all shakes out. I think if he keeps riding like that, he'll be a force to be reckoned with for sure.
Oh,
For
how
sure.
about this? So when Dino came up to me in the morning and we were chit chatting, he goes, wasn't it you that wrote an article or did something about Garrett Marshbanks? And I was like, yeah, why? And I thought he was gonna say like he's good friends with Garrett or something. Um, and Garrett was out on the track as we're talking. He goes, because his technique is terrible. Dino said that, and I'm like, oh no
No
way.
way.
I'm like, all right, I'm glad you agree with me because I thought you were just gonna tell me to like not talk crap on him. And I like Garrett too. Like, so I wrote this article for those of you that are wondering what I'm talking about. I wrote an article last year on Racer X explaining kind of style versus technique because I had called out Marshbanks on his poor technique since he's turned pro and since he's had his growth spurt. And another pro rider, and I'll put that in quotes because I don't even consider them a pro rider. They said it was his style. So I had to write this article. I felt like I had to write this article to explain the difference between style and actual technique, which is non-negotiable on a dirt bike.
Right. What you had some specifics there. Like it wasn't like his attack position was all wrong, right? His hips were.
Yeah, because he's
I
so
remember.
tall now and he's not used to it, and like his hips and his knees and everything is driven forward, which is a
Right.
really dangerous spot to be on the bike, especially when you're that tall.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, that's really funny that Dino came up to you and said that.
I'm glad he did. It made me feel good that like I wasn't way off base with that. And I like Garrett. Garrett will figure it out, and Garrett did really well. He rode really well. But again, with that being said, I don't want to wish injury upon anybody. But him riding the way that he's riding, especially trying to get through some whoops, he's gonna have some issues with that. But he's on a factory team. There's got to be somebody in his corner that will say something to him, and he'll get it figured out.
So let me ask you this. I'll play devil's advocate. You know, I love to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Why is he fast, and why is he on a factory team if his technique is terrible?
Because his technique wasn't always terrible when he was really short. So I trained with him. I actually trained him a little bit when we were at Club MX, when he was on 85s and super minis. And being a smaller kid, or normal size at least, on an 85, I don't remember him ever having technique issues. So it's not that he doesn't know how to ride. And this kid worked his butt off. I'm talking like me and Nicoletti and Amart and everyone at club used to just be like, this kid is insane. He would be out there like until it got dark every day. And he just wants it, like, which is awesome. And I like him. I like Garrett a lot. But then he like kind of like how AC had, and AC will admit that he went through this struggle of figuring out how to ride after he had that crazy growth spurt. I just don't think he's figured it out yet. But he's got that fire and desire, and he knows how to ride a dirt bike where he's able to still go fast, but he's not able to go fast really that safely or that consistently yet.
Okay.
I won't argue that you can go fast on a dirt bike with bad technique. What I will argue is that you can do it. You can't do it for that long until you end up on the ground. So he'll get it figured out. But he did well considering. I think he was 6th or 7th. Pretty darn good for your first Supercross.
No doubt about it. And how about Ferrandis?
Ferrandis is a beast. I think he's going to do really well. So none of what he did surprise. What did he end up second, right?
Yep.
No, I think I expect him and McElrath to be up there. McElrath is like the definition of. I really like AC's technique too, but they ride a little bit different. McElrath is some of my favorite technique like out there. And again, I trained with Shane at Club MX for years. I grew up with Shane. He's like perfect on a dirt bike, and he never rides above his head. He never looks sketchy. Where AC will kind of ride that edge every once in a while. It never seems like Shane finds that edge.
Yeah, I agree. That is something as a fan you could see in Shane, is that he always is very, very smooth.
And he is the master of when he gets a clear track, he's just a force to be reckoned with. He doesn't care about what's going on behind him. He can just ride cool, calm, and collected, and that's hard to do. So
I think actually Ricky Carmichael made that point. Was it on the 250 LCQ? It must have been the 250 LCQ, or maybe the four. No, it wasn't the 450 LCQ. But he had mentioned there was one of the riders that kept looking behind him. He was really worried that he was going to miss the spot.
mm-hmm.
And Ricky said, "You got to race in front of you. You got to race in front of you. You can't race behind you."
Yeah, Jerry Robin kept looking back. Old Jerry.
Right, that's who.
Yeah. Right. He kept turning around and looking behind him. Which there's a time and a place for that. I mean, when you're in the last transfer spot and you want to know where the guy is, just to have that gauge of where he's at. Yeah, maybe take a peek back, but he looked back like 4 times in 2 turns. So you could tell he was just panicking because he was faster than whoever's in front of him, but he couldn't get around him. And he's like, oh, shoot, I'm going to get caught from behind. It's kind of a tricky spot to be in. And Ricky made the point of saying he doesn't have to do anything. He's just got to stay where he was. But that's not true, because in the situation he was in, it was very urgent for him to get around that 3rd place guy just to give him that cushion.
Right. So, do you have any adjustments to your picks for the 250 championship, 250 West?
No. I'll stick where I'm at. I think I could see Cianciarulo being 1st, McElrath 2nd, Ferrandis 3rd, Colt Nichols 4th.
Okay.
I don't know who after that. Hampshire 5th. That's what I'll go with.
All right.
What about you?
I'm going to hold you to that. I would argue that Colt Nichols is top 3 based on what I saw the other night. We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, he just rode such a smart race, very composed, and I think that's a big statement at A1. Being that composed and leading the whole race, I think is a big tell. We'll see, but there's a lot of pressure, a lot going on behind him, especially with he didn't know where Cianciarulo was, so for at least in the beginning. So I think for him to stay out front and lead that race as commanding as he did, that's a big statement.
Well, and in the heat race, you couldn't really see this on TV. He ate up Cianciarulo, like caught him. And I don't know, Cianciarulo said in the interview he got caught up in some lap traffic, which I didn't see. But the last 3 laps of that heat, Nichols caught Cianciarulo from way back. So that's a big confidence booster as well. And that kind of made a statement. So, yeah, you could be right. We'll see. It should be interesting. I think the class isn't that deep. It's maybe a little bit more shallow talent-wise than it has been in the past. But there's
that's
never
they're all in 450s now.
I know. But there's never a lack of the top 5 guys being fast. There'll always be those top 5 guys at least, and it goes deeper than that. Don't get me wrong. Like Dakota's was 7th or 8th or something. He's no slouch. I think back to the top 12, 15 guys, it's still very, very fast riders.
For sure. 450 Heat 1. What do you think?
450 Heat 1. That was my heat.
The Roxon Wilson.
I forget what happened.
Yeah, that was
refresh my memory.
Oh no, they were up front.
Who won the heat? Roxon? I can't even remember. Yeah, so 450 Heat 1, from recalling from my memory, it was still pretty darn slick. First corner was really slick. I will say that when you watch it on TV, it does not do justice of how scary it was to have to hit that double across the start straight in the rain. And I'm on a 450. Never mind the guys that were trying to send it on 250s.
Yeah, so that double became an interesting topic, especially in the main, where it looked like an absolute nightmare. Yeah,
and it
Jason
the
Anderson.
Make or break.
It did. And so we'll get to that, but your heat being Heat 1, what was your perspective on it? I mean, you were getting good starts all day. How did you feel like you did right off the rip for Heat 1?
I set small goals, and it wasn't even ultimate goal to make the main. I didn't want to go that far. just to give everyone some like background, when I say, and I've made it pretty clear speaking in the past couple of weeks, that I've had no seat time. Like, I'm talking none. And I'm not sitting here at home twiddling my thumbs. The reason for that is I've been busy with my business. I've been busy with, a million and one other things, setting up, even just managing my team and my program alone this year with 17 title sponsors has been of way more work than I could have ever expected. So it's hard to find that balance. Yeah, I should have rode a little bit more, and it seemed like every day where I had a window, that a day that I had free, it would rain. So it made it really tough. Collectively, I had no exaggeration, from May in Las Vegas last year, I've probably ridden a dirt bike 5 times. So going into
Love how you're
A1,
admitting this.
yeah, going into A1, I rode the Thursday before. That was like day 5 from May. I rode the Thursday before A1. So Friday I was crazy sore, because I rode all day. I wanted to just get as much seat time as I could. I was at Milestone in California, and this is the reason why Dino actually came up to me. He's like, "Yo, I saw you pull in. I beeped and waved." He's like, "But I didn't see you on the Supercross track. Where'd you go?" And I was like, "Yeah, I didn't ride the Supercross track." He's like, "What? Why?" I was like, "Because it was my first day riding in forever. I'm not going to go out on the Supercross track right away and kill myself." So I just spent all day on the outdoor track at Milestone. Did a little photo shoot with Maxis, threw some whips, just tried to get as comfortable as I could on the bike. So going into Saturday, the goal was to just get comfortable, spin laps, and get good starts, and just see what the pace was like, and just kind of, get comfortable, really. And so, like I was explaining earlier, they dropped the gate in the 2-time qualifying sessions. I hole shotted both of those, which those were my only practice starts since I did a start in May.
And that's not typical for those listening. You're usually just doing kind of a flag start without a gate drop.
Usually, yeah. Last year they did it sometimes. Sometimes they didn't. I like when they do. Well, especially if I don't get the practice on a metal gate during the week. In this case, I hadn't touched a metal gate since May, so I needed that. But so you figure I line up and I hole shot the very first one against all these guys who've been practicing every day on a metal gate. So right away, boom, confidence, like with the starts there. Second one,
Yep.
hole shot. All right, cool. Line up for the heat race. I qualified crappy because I wasn't really worried about necessarily just throwing in a heater lap and qualifying. I was more concerned with just getting comfortable. I had a way outside gate in the heat. If I had a good gate, I would have got the whole shot. I came into the first turn second, and then spun out and came out of it 4th. Freaking awesome start in the heat from the outside. So then that's exactly what I wanted to do. So I got past, I dropped the anchor. I had the worst arm pump you could possibly imagine, but I didn't give up. I stayed out there. I faded back, but I did ride a few laps in a qualifying position. To me, that was a win.
Right.
So that was all I could have asked for, because next time I do it, the only thing that held me back in that situation was me riding really tight, because I was holding my breath. I was holding on too tight, and I was getting just extreme arm pump to the point where it was dangerous for me to even be out there. So I was just trying to hit my marks and be smooth and not get whiskey throttle, basically.
Right. And that really was kind of a function of the qualifiers, right? I mean, you and I talked in between Q2 and Heat 1, and you said you were really nervous going into Q2 because you didn't know where you stood, and
Right.
I think a lot of people would be surprised by that. Where and for people who don't know, I mean, the privateer setup on race day, there in the way that the races are run, it's really chaotic. It's extremely chaotic, and you would think that there would be somewhere that a rider could go to and they would be able to see their position, like boom, here's a chart, here's where I am. No,
Right.
it's not like that. you have to rely on going to timing and scoring and kind of adding, subtracting, taking everybody's heat, like A, B, and C, figuring out where you stack up relative
Right, so
to
I talked to you
I mean, it's not as
after the right before the night show, I talked to you.
Yep.
And I was like, I was a nervous wreck after the first qualifier because I was in 41st, which is outside of even a qualifying spot to make the night show. And it started to rain before my second qualifying session. So my plan was to go out in the second qualifier. Now that I'm comfortable, throw down a lap, I'll be in the top 40, no problem. But it starts to rain. So I'm crapping my pants. When I get out there, it's raining. The urgency to throw down a lap is like, I'm freaking out. So I rode really tight, not that well at all. I still qualified. But I was way more nervous than I should have been. And then when I talked to you, you go, "Oh, no. I counted you 37 going into that."
Yeah.
so I'm like, well, shoot, if I had known that, I would have been cool. I would have been totally fine. But
yeah,
people don't realize, like, you don't know. And just the little things too. Like, food is always an issue, like having enough food. So my sponsor for the weekend, he had brought just to snack on through the day, bread and peanut butter and jelly, but he forgot plastic silverware, so like a plastic knife to spread the peanut butter. So I go to make my sandwich. I'm like, wait, I have nothing to make the sandwich with. So my brother's trying to squeeze the peanut butter out just like onto the thing and spread it with like the lid. And then somebody comes over with the tiniest flathead screwdriver you can ever imagine is trying to spread the butter. Like, these are the things we have to deal with as a privateer.
Well, you'd think that, back to the timing and scoring thing, you'd think that somewhere it would be posted. There's got to be an LCD screen somewhere they can throw up everybody's position one through whatever.
You would think. So it gets posted separate, which is the problem, because then you're stuck counting, and sometimes you miscount by one or two, and it gets a little confusing because they have A, B, and C group. So you can see where you are in your group. So I was in B group.
Relative to the group.
Right. I was like, I don't know, let's just say 8th in B group, which is terrible, but I was 8th in B group. So I had to figure out if there was any guys in C that were faster. I had to count down from how many guys were faster than me in A. And sometimes you end up miscounting that by a spot or two.
Because some Bs were faster. Right. Some Bs are faster than the slowest A's, and some C's are faster than the slower B's.
Yep.
Or even comparable to some of the faster Bs. It's not an easy thing, especially when you're already revved up and there's a lot of, I think the analogy you gave was a lot of chefs in the kitchen and everybody's, it just gets really chaotic. So we'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
We had a lot of people helping me at A1, which was awesome. But there was also a lot of people there trying to help that have never been to a Supercross. So, if anything, they end up not getting in the way, but it gets confusing, and they don't know what to do to help me. They don't know what I need. I'm very specific with what I want and who I want talking to me. And when I come off the track, I just don't want to talk to anybody. There's certain things that it takes like that group of people around you to know what you want.
Right.
But
so we have ample opportunity to build. You had a good weekend, I think.
I was extremely happy with how everything went, all things considered. The fact that I was out there racing Anaheim 1, riding 5 times since May, hadn't ridden a Supercross track except for 2 days at Club MX in early October. And I didn't use that as an excuse. If anything, I used that as like motivation, where I made a game out of it, and I thought it was cool because in my head, I know that there's not many people out there that could do that. And mentally, I think I was proud of myself. I did a really good job of, when I got down there and I was in the tunnel before my very first qualifier of the day, in my head, I kind of tricked myself into thinking that Vegas was last weekend and that nothing had changed. I was out there and I was just, no time had passed. It's like riding a bike, not going to forget how to do it. And I did. I went out, I skimmed the whoops first lap. I doubled everything first lap. I hit the triple second or third lap. I was scared, but I made it happen. And I think moving forward from that point, like, I just had to get that first one out of the way a little bit.
Yep. So absolutely.
We'll be good.
Well, enough about you, loser. Well, let's talk about people who actually made the main event.
True.
Sure. I'm only kidding. No, I mean, we talked about Roczen and his comeback, and where we both thought he would end up, and it was pretty darn close to what we were predicting. So I mean, fast all day, took the heat win. It looks pretty strong.
Look
So
great.
I'm anxious to see how it all shakes out if he could keep it together for this season. I'm rooting for him. I'm a Roxon fan, and I want to see him do well. So I think his showing was good. I actually really liked the first heat race a lot. I think it was a good field. End up having two podium finishers in there, and actually no, was it? Yeah.
I can't remember 450 Heat one, and I just watched it.
No. So Plessinger, I think Plessinger took second, right? Third. Plessinger was third in the heat. Wilson was second. So Plessinger coming up from 250s, rookie 450. He had a great night.
Looked awesome.
Which we also kind of predicted. And
Savachi looked awesome, minus the first turn.
Savachi looked good, but he wasn't as high up as even in the heat as I thought he would be. You predicted more of a dominant showing, and I wasn't as impressed. I mean, he obviously rode really well, but there's room to improve.
Yeah, I think that comes with starts too, and it could go either way. Plessinger got much better starts than he normally would, and I think Savachi got much worse starts than he normally would. So that played a big factor as well. But I think moving forward, both of those guys, just like we would have guessed, are going to be definite threats. Like the fact that they were block past Savachi just straight up block past Anderson, who's the reigning champ.
Yeah,
it's just Anderson, funny.
So I don't know when is a good time to talk about Anderson, but I mean, being that we're on Heat 1 and he was in Heat 1 and he was fifth,
look good in Heat
1. In Heat 1. What do you think Anderson's deal is? I mean, he obviously had major issues in the main, very uncharacteristic. There's a million speculations out there as to what was possibly the issue. I'll tell you, while watching it as a fan, and maybe it was influenced by the broadcasting, but what it seemed to me watching it live was there was some sort of vision issue. That's what it looked like. And it was obviously horrible conditions. He was definitely riding in a survival mode. He was not riding in attack mode.
Well, he was attacking the first two laps, like the first two laps, it looked like he was moving forward for a second. And then
right. And then something happened.
Yeah.
Something happened.
And he didn't look spectacular in the heat, but also then again, he got fifth. I mean, that's plenty good enough. It's not like he rode bad. In time qualifying, he looked good. So that's the confusing thing. A lot of people are arguing like, oh, the red plate's heavy, nerves. No, come on. I mean, the guy demanded the championship all last year. Why all of a sudden at A1 would that change? Yeah, I could see him riding more conservative.
Dungey didn't have that heavy of a plate.
No, and I don't think Anderson gives a crap. I mean, if anything, in the interviews, he didn't want to even talk about last year anymore. He's just over it. Just wants to do his thing. Yeah, and there's also some people I was just reading like dummies on Facebook commenting. And
well, that's your first mistake.
Not knowing what they're talking about. A lot of them were going, oh, well, it couldn't have been vision issues. Everyone's dealing with the same rain and the same track. No, you idiot.
You could have mud in your eye. You could have
there's a million factors
so many times I've gotten freaking mud in my eye. And you're sitting there lap after lap, and you're like trying to blink it out, and it won't go out. Back when I had contacts before I had LASIK, that was a big issue for me. If I ever had a goggle issue and something got in and under my contact, it happened a couple times. It's over. There's nothing you can do.
And having tear-offs or roll-offs, that plays a factor. You could pull all of your tear-offs very easily. You could run out of roll-offs. Your roll-offs could malfunction. You could get water in between your tear-offs or your roll-offs. And then you got to pull them all off anyway. I mean, that could be it. I don't know. I know that played a big factor for Wilson at the end when he had to yank his goggles, and you could tell a lap or two before that he was struggling to see. I don't know. I don't think it's a cause for concern. I think people are freaking out about it quite a bit. he could very well go out and win Phoenix. So I don't think it's an issue. What'd he end up? 12th or 13th?
13th, I think.
I don't think that's even a huge issue because if you think about it this way, what Tomac get? Oh, Tomac got third. Muskin was kind of buried a little bit.
14th. It's 14th.
Who was? Anderson?
Anderson.
Wow. Yeah, but that's a throwaway race. That's not the worst throwaway race in the world. So
right.
It's gonna be a freaking good championship though, because like look, no one even talked about Muskin. And
I know.
He didn't look
I know.
good.
I had him in my top 3. I had him on the podium, and he came in 8th.
He came in 8th?
I'll tell you, 8th.
What about Malcolm Stewart? He looked great.
Phenomenal. And we both talked about that as well. I mean, he came into the season more prepared than he's ever been. He looks it. You could physically see him in better shape.
He looks, it's like with Reed, you see the difference from last year. Malcolm looks like he's fit. He was going to podium that race until he fell. And when he did fall, he got right back up and he kept charging, where normally I think the Stewart brothers are notorious for maybe giving up once they crash. He did awesome. He did really good.
I agree.
Good.
Yep.
Trying to think who else.
How do you want to flow into this? You want to talk about Heat 2, or do you just want to kind of?
Oh yeah, go for it. Heat, if I can remember what the heck happened.
You got. Well, that's why you bought the NBC Gold there, AJ. You could go back and look.
That is true. I'm afraid to click anything on my phone right now. Might end the recording. So Heat 2, Barsha won, right?
Yep. Malcolm Stewart, Blake Baggett, Bogle, Freezy, Tomac. So, look, you and I have talked about this before, and this field is just so freaking deep. So many fast guys. I mean, that's why I think this championship is up for grabs more than any previous one, in my opinion.
Yep.
You have just so many guys that are fully capable. I mean, has there been a 450 class? I'm trying to think when the last time there was like that many 250 champions that were so recent all together in the same 450 class.
No, never.
You know,
to my knowledge, never.
It's just absolutely stacked, and I think it's going to be interesting. I think every weekend it's going to be shaken up. I'm anxious to see how the like. Do you play the RM Fantasy? Or is that conflict of interest? Do you bet against yourself?
Oh, AJ's not making the main this week. No way. I would like to. Do you play it?
Yeah, for fun.
Yeah, it seems like it'd be fun.
Well, Jay made a group too, so now I'm in the rack racing group. So.
Oh, I didn't get the invite.
I came in second. Second this week.
Who beat you?
Tyler McAdams, I think, is in front of me.
Oh, I want to join.
I had 36 points. I picked Cole Seeley was my wild card, and I nailed that. And then I had Roxanne.
How does
on the
wild
podium.
Card work? Do you have to pick what position they get?
So you pick 1 through 5, and then you get then the wild card is just any position that they pick, and it's a different position every week. So it could be 10th, could be 8th, could be 12th, could be 7th, but every week it's a different one. It's not in the top 5. So it's just kind of a random one.
So what was
it's more position? Luck than anything. It was 10th.
And you picked Cole Seeley and you got it?
Yep. But that's kind of where he was like last year, like some kind of back in the middle of the pack, like not at the bottom, but not towards the top either. So that was my rationale, at least. It was more luck than anything. And then I had Roxanne on the podium. If you have somebody in your top 5, or is it top 3, but it's not in the order that you picked, you get 5 points or 10 points or something like that. Or no, 5 points, because I had Tomac.
But if it's in the order, you get additional points?
If you actually get the pick, you get like the maximum amount of points. So I had Tomac and Roxanne both in my top 5s, but not in the right order. So I ended up getting 10 points.
I want to start playing. I'd be good at that, I feel like. Although at this point, it's anyone's guess.
Well, here's what you do. You make your picks, you give them to me, and I play your picks, and I win. And then I share the prize with you.
Okay, deal.
No, but so obviously Barsha Heat 2. Barsha ends up taking the win for the night. What an incredible performance by him. You kind of predicted that one too. So you're right on the money. I mean, that confidence wave that he's going to be riding,
Yep.
it's going to be cool to see how that plays out.
I mean, that's exactly what he needed. I think he was playing off that confidence just a little bit from the end of last year and maybe some off-season races.
You want to know what I liked about it?
Good.
You want to know what I liked about it? And well, first I want to talk about Dean Wilson leading so much of that race. I want to talk about Dean Wilson in general. I know you're good friends with Dean Wilson. What the hell has he been doing in the off season? Because he came out like he was on a factory team with the most preparation of anybody out on the track. Like, what the heck got into him?
Well, I think think back to A1 last year. He was an animal in time qualifying last year at A1 in the heat race. He probably was going to win that heat race. He was trying to jump this double and wheelie over some double that I would have never in a million years thought to wheelie over. And that's when he crashed and got hurt. And then from there, it was an uphill battle. So I don't think it was as much, for me, it wasn't really that much of a surprise. And I think that combined with him having a chip on his shoulder, not having that factory ride, I think he was, the one thing I was impressed about, and I will say, is the composure he had while leading the main event for that long. I thought for sure, and I know Dean, he struggled with arm pump in the past. I thought he would have tightened up way earlier in that main event than he did.
What did he lead for? 15, 16 laps?
Yeah, it felt like forever. Even watching
it was a
race.
long time. I was rooting for him so hard. I really wanted him to take it. I really did. That would have just been such a stick it to the man moment if he won.
Yep.
And I was really hoping for that.
And it would have been the first privateer to win a main event in, I don't know, geez.
Yeah.
20 or 30 years probably.
I also appreciated how it wasn't a fluke. I mean, he rode really well in the heat race. He rode well all day. It just looked right. It felt right. And he just looked like a pro, and you got to hand it to him for sure. But the same could be said for Barsha too. I mean, it looks like he's been getting progressively better, more consistent the last couple seasons, and finally he's paid off with a A1 win, first win since 2012, 2013, and I think he's going to be a real contender. He rode well, he rode composed. He wasn't riding outside of his ability.
No,
obviously
not at all.
skill, but he didn't look out of control. He didn't look sketchy. He commanded the lead the entire time, and brought it home.
He had a couple Barsha moments where he bounced his way through rhythm sections, but other than that,
well, how much of that was condition based too? Because by the time he took the lead, it was beat.
Right, and Justin is one of those too where he never seems to ride tight. And his fitness is possibly better than anybody's. Barsha is a beast. So I don't know. I mean, where other guys like Tomac and like I was just talking about Dino, definitely some of those guys I see tightening up, and it's very visual. Like I mean, it's obvious to anyone watching when those guys tighten up. Barsha never seems to have that problem. He's comfortable riding on the ragged edge at times. In that main event, he didn't even look like he was riding on the ragged edge. So, shoot. Yeah, I mean, going into Phoenix, I don't know what the heck my picks would be. I forget what my picks even were for A1. I think I had Tomac winning. I don't know if I would change them because I feel like Tomac was, at the end of the race, he was still the fastest guy on the track. It looked like he was.
No, Cooper Webb had the fastest lap time of the night.
Webb.
I think.
Forgot about
Cooper Webb is the biggest unsung hero of that race.
Yeah, I didn't even realize he crashed in the first turn, and then he came back to fifth.
Yeah. He arguably was probably the fastest rider on the track that night.
I totally forgot about him.
He made up a ton of spots.
Wow. Yeah. All right. So that's what I would do then is, and I think Webb's another one of those. Everyone rides off confidence, but there's certain guys that really, really feed off that better than others. I think Webb is going to be one to be in the top 5 again, probably the top 3.
Well, Cooper Webb has had several, probably the most notable come from behind charges outside of Eli Tomac out there. I mean, he's done that several times where he's been deep back and has just made a rampage to the front and has made up tons of spots. So that's kind of his MO. You can tell he just gets pissed.
Yeah, Webb gets pissed off super easy. That's just his personality.
He could channel it like nobody else, man. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, so that was good. I forgot about that. What about Baggett? What happened to Baggett?
That's a good. I'm glad you brought up Baggett because talk about the 450s. We talked about how talented the field is. You look at the results 10 through 22. The names that are finishing 10th and worse are just insane. You have Cole Seeley 10th, Justin Brayton 11, Blake Baggett 12, Freezy 13, Anderson 14, Justin Hill 15, Savachi 16.
And then it goes to like Gardner,
Carlin
17th,
Gardner,
which is awesome for him.
Ben LeMay 18, Justin Bogle 19th, Tyler Bowers 21st. You have some big freaking names down there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, this year there's going to be those 2 or 3 slots open for the privateer guys, if that.
Which is why they need.
Reed get? Reed rode well.
9th.
Yeah, that was solid.
Top 10. Yeah.
Although I will say, he didn't. I expected a little more from Reed. Supposedly, somebody told me he barely made the night show. Is that true?
Well, no. He got to the LCQ by one spot.
In time qualifying. Was he like 20th or 30th or something in the...
I don't remember. Let me check.
Wow. Because if that's the case, somebody was asking me.
Honestly, I was too worried about you. I wasn't even looking at anybody else.
Yeah. I was worried about me too. I'll figure this out in 1 second. Let's see. Combined qualifying times 450. I don't think whoever said that was right.
Reed, 56? No, he was in the 56s for lap times. He was well within it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he was well within.
Yeah. So whoever brought that up to me didn't know what they were talking about.
Yeah, that's no.
But that's another. Let's talk about that for 2 seconds.
Right.
Even going back to the top 40, it's the fastest it's ever been. Because
I know.
I tell you what, like there was. I'm looking here at lap times.
Well,
there was.
I thought you were going somewhere else with this. I thought you were going somewhere else. When I remember talking to you the other night, I brought this up, and you couldn't believe it that 250s qualified faster than the 450s.
Oh yeah.
I think Cianciarulo was a full second faster than Blake Baggett.
Cianciarulo had a 53.9 to Baggett's 54.3. So 0.4. What is that? 0.4. That doesn't usually happen. Granted, they had
it has happened, but it's not a regular occurrence, and
yeah,
especially on a track like that at A1.
A beast. He was almost a full second faster than Ferrandis, who was second. Yeah, Cianciarulo was just on fire. And they did have a smoother track, of course, because they always go out first, so that plays a factor. It started to rain, so it only got worse and worse.
But you know what? I will say that track, and you could speak to this better than I can, having ridden it, but it didn't seem to me that track lended itself for a 450 to have that big of an advantage over a 250.
No, most don't. Most really don't.
Okay. Because I mean, but even so, like Cianciarulo was quadding that rhythm section, no problem doing the double over the start line. Like I mean, it just seemed like there are tracks where you could tell 250s don't have enough oomph, especially out of turns and a lot of the techier places to get themselves out of certain scenarios. It didn't seem like this track was like that at all.
No, I would say for me personally, if there's 17 races in a series, I would probably be faster on a 250 at 10 or 11 of those 17.
No kidding.
It's very. I would want the 450 for the starts, obviously, and that's kind of the biggest factor. That's why I would ride a 450 rather than just riding a 2, because the starts are that important. But other than that, it's rare that you would get a rhythm section that you can't jump on a 250. For the top guys, yeah, sometimes there's like Tomax doing some crazy triple out of a turn that no way could you do on a 250. But that's a rhythm that I probably wouldn't be doing on my 450 either. But that's where you'll see the separation in the top 2 or 3 or 4 450 guys to the 250s normally. But this weekend didn't have a section like that. You would have thought that in the rhythm against before you went under the bridge, I thought somebody was going to 3 in there, but no one ever did. It was just a 2-3-3, which was basic for everyone. The doubles across the start, although I wouldn't want to be on a 250 for that, because a couple times I almost killed myself on a 450. The 250s were still getting it. 250s were getting that quad in the other rhythm. Bikes are just so fast nowadays that the 250s are able to get most everything.
Right.
But yeah, 81 minutes. So what is that? Hour and 20 minutes in? What else you got? Let me check my notes. Let's see what my handy
check your
notebook.
notes.
We got network change, Dean Wilson.
Let's get controversial. Finish this off.
Okay, controversial. So going back to the RJ Hampshire pass, he got a written warning for that. Did you know that?
I did not know that. Why didn't you bring that up?
That's kind of baloney. I'm just seeing it now. Isn't that crazy?
All right. So before I react to that, I will have to ask this question. When you have a guy like Vince Freeze, who's notorious for ridiculous passes, how many written warnings has he gotten?
You're right. I don't know.
You'd have to know that before like and I would need that context before I react, because if they're handing out warnings for incidents like that regularly, then okay. But I don't even think that was that wasn't even that dirty of a pass.
No, I agree. And normally I would never know if somebody got a written warning unless I saw it in an article. But this year, Feld or the AMA, they're sending us emails with like a debrief after each race with the penalties. So I got an email right before this podcast.
What?
It said something penalty. And I'm like, oh no, did I get docked for something? So I clicked in and it had a list of everyone that had some sort of penalty. So I saw like Jerry Robin and a couple guys got docked in time.
Hold on. This isn't confidential, right?
I can't share the actual file.
Right. Okay.
All right. I won't name names then. So there was
don't name names.
There was multiple people that got docked for stopping on the track. So in time qualifying, if you stop on the track, you lose your best lap time. And then I saw in RJ's situation.
Under what scenario would stopping on a track even be a thought for somebody?
Well,
you have a mechanics area to pull off to if you need to.
Yeah, that's the thing, is there are times where you need to stop on the track, like to let somebody by safely. So that rule is kind of garbage, because if
stop, are we talking? Okay, so when I hear stop, I'm thinking you're stopped, not pulling off. You could pull off and not be stopped.
Well, there's times where you can't pull off. So let's just say a good example of this would be the over-under bridge. You go over that, you hit the small whoops, you hit the triple, tight left-hander after it. If you're on a slow lap, so let's just say you roll the triple, you turn around, you see 3 guys coming on a fast lap. I'm going to just roll the inside as slow as I can. But if there's 3 guys back to back to back, I'm going to just sit there and wait for a second and make sure all of them clear me before I get in their way through the rhythm. So in that situation, I would probably stop for a second. And if they dock me for that, I'd be pretty darn pissed off, because that would be the safe thing to do.
Is there any appeal process that you can go through? I mean, like...
No, the AMA doesn't give a crap. I mean, if they dock you, you're docked.
So that's. I mean, there's nobody sitting somewhere in some control center saying to themselves that rider just made a safe decision by doing that, not a reckless one, not a dangerous one. Because the scenario you just laid out is a perfect example of a decision that can be made to keep everybody safer, not put anybody in a more dangerous position. If
Right,
you're
and
stopping
that's
in the middle of a whoop section or stopping in
mhm.
on a transition of a jump, then that's another story. But
Right, and
who's reviewing all this stuff?
no one. So my only guess is the only way to rebut, like come back with a rebuttal on that, is if you had somebody, which a lot of these teams do, and even I do a lot of the time, is if you have somebody that's in the crowd that's filming your session, and if you can go back and show them the footage of, okay, this is why I did this, then yeah, maybe. I don't know. I know I've been docked a couple times, and that there was nothing I could do about it. And I'm not dumb. Like anytime I do something, there's a reason behind it. So if I were to stop
Yep.
on the track, I'm not. I'm there's no way in heck I'm stopping on the track anywhere where that would potentially put anyone in a dangerous situation. If I'm stopping on the track, you know it's because I'm just trying to let people by, and so I'm not messing up their lap. Um, yeah, so that'd be interesting because I know there's 5 or 6 names on that list that got their best time taken away for stopping on the track, and I don't think these
Hmm.
guys are dumb enough to just be stopping like in dangerous places. I bet you it's doing the exact same thing I just explained,
Right.
which
No,
doesn't make sense. But a lot of things at the AMA really don't make sense, honestly.
I I cannot believe that they gave RJ Hampshire a written warning for that pass. It wasn't dirty. He didn't go with the intent to injure. He didn't go with the intent to take him out. He didn't go. It looked more of like an aggressive racing move than anything else. I don't know.
Yeah.
Are you seeing a crackdown on that type of thing though, or is that would you, in your opinion, would you have seen the same type of thing last season, or is this kind of a new direction the AMA is going?
I
What's your
think
thoughts?
I'd say the past few years, just like the rest of the country is kind of going that direction. It's getting softer and softer. Probably, yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think a written warning's too much to worry about. But if you got a real, if he was docked for that, come on. Like this is
Mm,
Supercross. You got to expect like if Sansarillo, the argument could be made for if I was RJ and I was arguing that point, I would say Sansarillo stuffed the crap out of me in that turn before, basically did exactly what I did, didn't leave me any room at all, and he should have expected me to come up the inside. So why didn't he back off and let me up the inside? Because all that really was RJ running him high enough where if Adam had anticipated that and backed off the throttle earlier, he wouldn't have ran out of track. He would have just had to wait for a second as RJ blocked the line and then continued. The only reason Adam crashed is because he was committed to the turn, and by the time RJ ran him that high, he couldn't have let off because he would have tipped over anyway.
right.
So
Wow.
that's silly. But you know, like 2016 when I slammed Tedder before the finish in the LCQ, I got docked.
That was a written warning.
No, I got straight up. I got docked for that.
Yeah. Well, that was uh that was a little more reckless than
Yeah,
RJ's
but
pass.
reckless is different. I mean, how are you gonna justify docking somebody for jumping
A
onto a hay
block
bale,
pass.
feet coming off? I didn't take Tedder out on purpose, and any like not retarded person watching that would have seen that I landed on a hay bale, my feet blew off, and I just whiskey throttled into Tedder like a straight on T-bone by accident.
Right.
So how can you then start docking people? Oh, that guy lost control and he took him out. We're just going to dock him. That's just a racing incident,
Mm.
and that's totally different situation than RJ's. But what I'm saying is, the AMA doesn't really. There's not a lot of thought behind a lot of the stuff that happens. As you can
Mm.
see with this whole press day situation, not making any sense either. There's a lot of things the AMA does that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Mm.
But we got to live with it.
One thing I wanted to mention before we sign off here. Do you realize that you almost qualified in the last chance qualifier to no fault of your own? Did you happen to see that Adam Entignap almost died? Did you catch that?
Oh, wait, when they almost landed on each other?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that. They had both crashed.
Dude, when that happened, first of all, I was holding my breath because I thought for sure he was landing on him. Like, absolutely thought for sure. I was like, holy shit, here we go. Like, dude, I mean, we're talking centimeters away from catastrophe.
Yeah,
but yeah, had those two crashed, that would have put you in a qualifying position, right? Or well, no, because you end up 7th. But you would been 5th. At that point you would have. At that point you were 6th, and those two would have been taken out. I think Alex Ray ended up passing you.
Right, and if I was in, I wouldn't have let.
But if you were in 4th, you wouldn't have let it. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Darn. Yeah, that section kind of was a little hairy in that sense because half of the pack I feel like was taking the inside line and jumping up over the step up. But if you took the inside, you would just drift all the way out. So I think that's what happened in that situation. Is Chisholm went outside, Entignap went in, and they just jumped right into each other.
Right.
Yikes.
Sketchy.
I saw somebody, or it was Ryan Brees in the main event, got stuck on top of that thing with his bike like hanging off the edge. And he spent like 3 laps trying to get his bike off. I'm surprised, like, I don't think I remember seeing it on the TV broadcast. I was like,
did he get docked for stopping on the track?
Yeah, probably. I was like, if I was Ryan, I would have just left my bike. He was so close to falling off the side of that bridge.
So, from someone who has been landed on, how does that feel?
That's getting landed on is probably my worst fear.
It makes for the most spectacular looking crashes for sure, and like the most like jarring for like.
That's like my worst nightmare is getting landed on. It's just that sucks. I mean, it's happened to me so many times throughout my amateur career as a pro. Now I've always been extra safe about it. Like if I'm doubling something, you better believe I'm looking back 20 times to make sure that nobody's coming. If somebody is, I'll jump off the track before I get landed on. Like Barsha last year where he got clipped by who landed on Barsha last year that broke his hand when he doubled the triple. Oh, Bowers I think landed on him. If I was, because Barsha was in like 1st or 2nd in the heat, he missed a gear, endoed something, he had to double the triple and he stayed on the track. If I was Barsha, I wouldn't have stayed on the track. I would have doubled and I would have jetted right to the left and got off the track just to be safe. Even if it meant going back to last place, I wouldn't have risked somebody coming down landing on me.
Yeah, it's sketchy, man. There's nothing you can do. Bikes are heavy.
Yep, bikes are heavy. Well, that was a solid wrap up.
Pal. Yeah. Anything we could look forward to for Glendale? Did you see the track layout? It's like the longest start you've ever seen. You should go take a look at it. It's going to be interesting.
It was really long last year too.
Going to come into turn 1 at 50, 60 miles an hour into a ridiculous rhythm section.
This year at A1, I didn't even have to shift 3rd going down the 1st straight. It was pretty long. I just left it in 2nd though. So this week I guess I'll have to shift.
I would imagine this is probably double the length of A1.
That's good. My starts are good, so we'll be fine.
Yeah.
As long as the stock bike doesn't get pulled, because it usually when you make that shift to 3rd, that kind of mid to top end range is where those factory bikes will just see ya.
Oh yeah.
But let's before we sign off here, just the 450 class. Or no, both classes. Give me your top 5. No, give me your top 3 so we can easily remember this.
For next week?
Yep.
All right, 250. I'm going to write this down too so I don't forget. I think you're gonna see AC come out with a win next week because he wants to redeem himself. He wants redemption. So I'm going Adam Cianciarulo first, 250. I'm gonna say second. I don't know, man. I'm tempted. I'm tempted to go with Nichols, second place, and I'm gonna put Ferrandis in third.
Okay, good choices.
How about you?
I'm gonna say Cincerello first. Ferrandis second, Nichols third.
Okay, cool.
So just swap out second and third. What about 450 for you?
Man, 450 is so tough to predict. Well, all right. Let me ask you this question: what's the weather looking like for next week?
It's got a roof.
Oh, okay. So it's domed. All right. So okay. So I gotta stick with Tomac first. I have to. I really have to. I mean, from where he went from to where he ended up second, he made up a lot of time last week. I think I'd be silly not to.
I think that's smart.
Pick Tomac. I'm sorry, I ended up third, not second. But anyways, oof. I know I'm just swapping the order. I'm pretty much just doing the reverse of what I just did for 250s, but I'm going to stick. It's going to be a toss-up between oh, man. Who the hell knows, dude? I think Justin Barshaw is going to be on the podium again. And I think Rox is going to be on the podium. It's going to be the same podium, I think, just in different order.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised by that. I'm gonna go with Roxon, Tomac, Barsha.
Okay. I got Tomac, Roxon, Barsha.
That's tough though. I'm just trying to think back to Phoenix last year. I remember Barsha being a beast at Phoenix last year.
I want to put Dean Wilson on the podium. Not knowing what his program has been, I don't. Does he have what it takes to go the full 20 plus a lap? I mean, you might know better than me.
Yeah, but I don't know if he has the pace of those guys the whole time. I think what makes those guys so special is they can wick it up, or the pace. Like I know Tomac and Roxon are capable of riding. The last 3-4 minutes of that race is just bizarre.
Fair enough. But this is what's so tough about 450s because this season is because as I'm sitting here, I mean, Malcolm Stewart is right in the mix based on, and I'm not just looking at like a couple little things. I'm looking at like the whole day last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are consistently fast. The Malcolm Stewarts. I'm shocked Blake Baggett was finished as far down as he did, but I mean he was fast. Cooper Webb had a great performance in the main, even though he ended up fifth. He tore through everybody. I don't know. 450 is gonna be a really tough call the whole season. I think unless somebody gets hurt or gets really thrown off, it's just I think that podium is gonna see the most shakeup that it's seen in many years.
Which, speaking of injuries, I don't think there was anyone that got hurt at A1, which is
no, but
kind of a surprise to me.
Zach Osborne getting hurt right before A1.
Yeah, and I think other guys will start dropping like flies too. It happens every season. I mean, especially when the field's as tight as it is right now. People are going to be riding above their comfort zone, and that's when you get hurt. So, I'd never want to wish that upon anybody, but it's mark my word, it'll start happening sooner than later.
Well, let's hope not. Let's hope for a healthy season, a successful season for everybody, whatever your matrix are. And I think this is as good a time as any to send it off. So we thank everybody for tuning in. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this long and interesting conversation.
And let's open it up next time too for if you guys want to send questions to questions.catpodcast@gmail.com. Is that the right email?
You got it.
questions.catpodcast@gmail.com. Send them over. I think next debrief we have after Phoenix, we'll probably take the time to go over a handful of questions as well. I feel like it's a good time to do it.
Not only that, but I think one of our goals, correct me if I'm wrong, is to do one, if not multiple of these episodes live. So we'll be able to do some more interactive kind of things, and whether we'll figure out the logistics later on, but that might be a good opportunity to get some cool involvement too, and you could speak directly to people's questions as they come in.
Right.
So
because last night when
stay
I did
tuned
that
for that
quick one on Instagram, there was questions rolling in like crazy. So that'll be cool once we do that.
Absolutely. Cool, man.
Alrighty.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Check us out. Check our other episodes out. Episodes 1 through 8 are up on iTunes. They're up on AJ's website. They're on Google Play. They're on YouTube.
Look at
Go
us
check
go.
them out.
We're almost at 10 episodes.
I know they're plugging right along. Yep. And please look forward to these weekly recaps. I think our plan is to get some guests on, whether they be riders or industry people on to go over some of these debriefings with us. We'll get that on the works and hope to bring you some more content throughout the season.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Toodaloo.
Adios.